Since it's officially handshake season in the NHL, I decided to unearth some of the most disrespectful handshake moments to date. In this video, we'll be going over a few times when players snubbed, threatened, or mocked their opponents in the handshake line. And with that, here are the top 3 most disrespectful NHL handshake moments. In the late 2000s, the Pittsburgh Penguins and Detroit Red Wings were both considered to be amongst the best teams that the league had to offer. Due to this fact, it wasn't long before the two teams clashed in the playoffs, and from there began to develop a fierce rivalry. In 2008, the Wings had a powerhouse of a team, with names such as Nicklas Lidstrom, Pavel Datsyuk, and Henrik Zetterberg. The team was primed and ready to do some severe damage in the playoffs. In fact, for those who don't know, Detroit actually captured the Stanley Cup in 2002. Therefore, the team had a pretty good grasp on what the postseason demanded. After defeating the Dallas Stars in 5 games in the Western Conference Final, Detroit was set to face the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins, however, had much less Stanley Cup experience, and at the time were an up-and-coming young team. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, and Chris Letang had just finished playing their second regular season together as a trio. Marc-Andre Fleury was still learning the ropes in net, and Jordan Staal had recently put his first 2 seasons under his belt as well. And as you'd expect, this time, experience outdid youth, as Pittsburgh ultimately fell to Detroit in 6 games. But this was just the beginning of the bad blood, because the two teams ended up versing in back-to-back Cup finals. This time though, the result was much different, as the Penguins had gotten their taste prior to what it would take to hoist Lord Stanley. Shortly after Marc-Andre Fleury's legendary save on Nicklas Lidstrom, Pittsburgh lined up to carry out an age-old hockey custom. However, it seemed as if Crosby was too busy celebrating with teammates to even notice that the handshake line had formed. Either that, or the captain was upset about a hit that took place earlier in the series and opted out due to resentment. Regardless, after he managed to shake a select few of his opponent's hands, Chris Draper spoke out about the incident. "Nick was waiting and waiting, and Crosby didn't come over to shake his hand. That's ridiculous, especially as their captain," he said. Henrik Zetterberg gave his thoughts about it as well, saying, "I think it's one thing you should do. I don't know why he didn't do it. It's disrespectful," he said. Later on, Pittsburgh's team vice president at the time, Todd McMillan, didn't agree with the Wings that it was done on purpose. Nobody respects the traditions of hockey more than Sidney Crosby. It was a young team celebrating its first cup, and some of the guys might have been a little late getting into the handshake line. Here's the thing, most of the time with interactions such as these, there was already prior animosity. Usually it's involving a rivalry that's run deep due to an incident or just a long bitter history. However, I think it's fair to say that this one is straight up an anomaly. Reason being, it involves 2 players that had formed an enviable bromance prior to, instead of beef. If you'd like to learn more about their unbreakable bond, be sure to check out my video that I did on the players that Panarin loves the most. It all transpired in the postseason of 2019. I fondly remember this series being one that brought lots of parody. For one, the Lightning became the first team in NHL history to be swept by an 8th seed that had also clinched the President's Trophy. Secondly, coming into the playoffs, having the Lightning winning the first round seemed like one of the safest entries on the bracket challenge, due to the fact that Tampa tied the Detroit Red Wings for the most regular season wins in a season in league history with 62. Then Boston came along. Anyways, by now, you'll probably understand why the Lightning players weren't particularly happy with being embarrassed by the underdog. One of those players happened to be Nikita Kucherov, who was Kucheroved considering that he went goalless throughout the series with 2 assists to his name. 2019 and this current postseason have been the only 2 out of 10 seasons in the playoffs that the forward has failed to tickle the twine. So you can imagine that Kucherov wasn't feeling very cheery come handshake time. Despite this though, Artemi Panarin decided to pick the wrong time to mess with his fellow countryman, as the bread man, while laughing at his friend's expense, decided to attempt a high five when he got to Kucherov. And in response, Kucherov left Panarin hanging in what would become known as the most awkward handshake of all time. I had to take a quick break to remind you all to stay hydrated. Summer is almost here, and that means that you'll be needing Liquid IV more than any other time of year. Liquid IV gives you faster hydration than water alone and 3 times the electrolytes than the leading sports drink. If you'd like to support me and also get a product in return, this is the best way to go. Plus, by using my promo code AlyssaHope in all caps, you'll receive 20% off your entire order and free shipping. Simply click the link below to get started or fire up the website and plug in my code with your order. And now, back to the video. The Montreal Canadiens and the Boston Bruins. If you were to ask what two teams hate each other the most, outside of the Battle of Alberta, a lot of NHL fans would say these two. Why, you ask? Timing, proximity, playoff matchups, there's a lot of reasons really. However, back in 2014, it was Milan Lucic who gave Habs fans another reason not to fear the Bear, but to hate its existence entirely. After a tumultuous second round between the two rivals, it took 7 games to produce a winner, as the Montreal Canadiens were the ones to move on. However, it was upon the final customary ritual that things quickly escalated, as far as verbal threats were concerned. According to Dale Weise, and anyone with eyes really, Lucic said to Weise, "I'm going to you next year." Now, it's important to note that, according to an article from Yahoo Sports, which I'll link below, Weise didn't come out and say it. Instead, a journalist who indeed had working eyes guessed the verbiage on his own. When confronted with the news that Weise had revealed his opponent's threatening words, Lucic seemed unforgiving. If he wants to be a baby about it, he can make it public. I don't come running to anyone about anything. I deal with my problems myself. I don't think much of the guys that feel the need to go and do something like that. What's said on the ice stays on the ice. Weise eventually responded saying, "You know what, I'm going to say it once. I never went into detail about it. I never made any comment on what he said. It got blown out of proportion," Weise said. Not to sound biased, but since I've had the opportunity to chat with Dutch Gretzky, I'm Team Weise on this one. He's a nice dude, and he's pro Crosby.
I'm a huge Sidney Crosby fan, so it's awesome every time you play him. Every time you play him,
In conclusion, there's definitely a slew of additional moments that I could touch on. Therefore, just let me know if you all would like a part 2. If you enjoyed this video, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my channel for more NHL themed content. And for those of you who are already consuming my content on the regular, you can support me by joining my Patreon. With plans that start at just $1 a month, you'll be among the first to see every new video topic and to see snippets of each video before it's uploaded here. You'll also be privileged to monthly shoutouts by me and able to see hidden channel analytics. Simply click the link below to get started to get a welcome message from yours truly. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.
I will remember, always remember that goal. And, you know,
she was 6 years old.
No.